But celebrity status doesn't get you any. In fact, it's bad because you're a target.
Hi, I'm Larry Lawton, America's biggest jewel thief. Join me as I walk you through my past robberies, how I planned them, executed them, and ultimately got caught. I'm going to show you how we did things in prison, like making a tattoo gun, making wine, making white lightning. It's going to be very educational. These are the untold stories.
Hey everybody, Larry Lawton here. I'll be doing a video today on celebrities in prison and even celebrities visiting prisons. I get a lot of questions like that when I do comments, so I thought I'd go into that. A lot of people ask me, Larry, did you know any celebrities who went to prison? Were you in prison with any of the celebrities? Did you see them? Well, I'm gonna give you a couple of them. Yes, I was in prison. I was in prison with professional athletes, a couple of very, very heavy hitters. Obviously, you guys know I'm following the Kodak Black situation very closely because I think it's an important situation, because here's where, a point where the celebrity status is hurting him. Well, let's get to the celebrities in prison. Kodak Black is obviously a celebrity who's not being treated well in prison. Period. He's not being treated well. Now let's keep going to other ones. I was in prison with a guy named Broderick Graves. Nice guy. He was a professional football player for the Philadelphia Eagles in the early 90s, and he got caught up in the drug business from gambling, and he was a good kid, and they put him in United States Penitentiary, Atlanta. They actually made an example out of him. Another case where a celebrity status or somebody famous, he probably got screwed over as well, because the system doesn't want to appear to be favoring somebody. So they even go the other way and give them more time than they would. He wouldn't rat. This guy's name is Broderick. Good guy. What a great athlete. When I was in prison with him, I watched him. He had world-class speed. When you see the races on the yard, him and some other guys would run and races for big money. Unbelievable. In the 100, there was a guy that used to beat him in the 40-yard dash. This little kid couldn't beat nobody could beat him. But when you got to the 100-yard dash, this guy, Broderick Graves, had world-class speed, meaning he got up and running, and when he got moving, forget about it. He was a running back and a punt returner for the Philadelphia Eagles in the early 90s. Look him up, Broderick Graves. I was also in prison with, obviously, mobsters, but the other pro athlete was Willie Aiken. Willie Aiken was the first baseman for the Kansas City Royals, and he's got a record, I think, for back-to-back home runs in a World Series game or something of that nature. Great, boy. I played on a softball team with him, and I'll tell you what, if you were playing against him, you didn't want to be the first baseman. He was a lefty, couldn't run, his knees were shot. Again, a drug case. Did I think he got screwed? Absolutely got screwed. And a nice guy. I mean, I'm not saying he was treated well. Those guys had respect though, because they respected other people. Now we also had celebrities, if you want to call them, which was mob bosses that were in the newspapers all the time. We had Nicky Scarfo, Vic Arena, Vic Amuso, Patty Amato. These were guys that were in the mob business, very big, Mark Ryder and stuff like that. These were mobsters that made lots of money with big high up in the families and stuff. And I obviously hang out with those guys. But as far as their visits, you know, people would ask me, what's it like? Even me, when I got visits, they would watch my visits very closely. They would watch my phone very closely. Like when you are a celebrity or you are somebody of interest to the system, they monitor, first of all, they monitor every phone call in there, but they have a guy listening. But when you pick up the phone, somebody like myself or one of these mobsters or celebrities, they are totally listened to and recorded, because the government is always looking to get you. They got nothing but time, and they're looking to see if you're still playing in the game or messing up. And they hear all the stuff, the intimate conversations. They'll hear the stuff that you might be with your daughter, you know, you're hurting, your wife might have cheated on you. It's hurting. Your wife doesn't want to come visit you, and they hear those intimate conversations. They hear your voice breaking because when you want to cry, and that's normal. But, you know, when you're in there for a while, you know, you say, fuck them, I don't care what they're going to say. I don't care. Let's take visiting. Visiting was something, you know, when you had a visit and the celebrities had a visit, you know, you'd see other celebrities sometimes coming to, or you'd hear it, or if you're in the visiting room when somebody came in, It's not like you would think, oh, who it is, you know, go up to him. You can't move. I was in prisons where you can't move. When I say you come into the visiting room, you get strip search coming in. When you get in the visiting room, you get to hug your partner. Obviously, that's where all the transfers or whatever goes on, but you hug your partner. Then they make you sit either across from them in Atlanta. Some places let you sit next to them, but very few. Usually it was across from somebody or a seat away. And they want to keep an eye on them, especially later in my time. When I first got in, it was a little bit better. But they were watching like a hawk. With the mobsters, they talk about really watching them. They used to put them in an area that they would bug the area. They would actually wiretap the area they're in the visiting room. You'd think, oh, you whisper, and they got it bugged in a high degree. It's crazy what they used to do to those guys. And that's just because they were celebrities, or we didn't call them celebrities. See, they're high-profile inmates. That's what they called, high-profile inmates. And obviously somebody like me who went from prison to prison and was a troublemaker became a high-profile inmate because some guards didn't like me, some did. Some did not like me, some wanted to get me because I might have did something to a guard friend of theirs. I fought the system legally, suing them, and one warden calls the other warden, and before you know it, you're screwed. It's just what they do. It's as sad as it is, but that's what they do. And the high-profile guys get it a little bit. Like when I traveled on an airplane, and I was on Con Air over 16 times. That's that federal plane. I'm going to be talking about that in the movie with Nicolas Cage, the movie Con Air. But I was in belly chains and irons, and they put a black box on me. Now that black box is murder. You can't even move. You want to talk about really torture? It's total torture. So they would transfer me in black boxes. Whenever you came from the hole, they put you in a black box. The hole, the shoe, the special housing unit, that's what they're called. And they just do this. The amount of not caring about the little things, and you'd think, oh, who cares, you can't move. You try doing that for 12 hours, 13 hours. You come with welts on your arms. You know, some people had permanent stuff done. You know, dislocate your wrist. It's just crazy. You can't, and they'll never take that black box off, ever. You could die. You could be laying there going to the hospital, and that black box is going to be on you. And high profile. Have you ever heard of the guy named Lou Pearlman? Lou Pearlman, funny story, and I'll never forget this. Lou Pearlman was the fat manager of NSYNC, and I think the Backstreet Boys too. He founded those groups. And when I was getting out in 2007, I was getting off a plane and going in, and Lou Pearlman was just coming into prison. So this is about 2007, somewhere around 2007, maybe 6, 7, something like that. Lou Pearlman is fat white guy that day. He was a scumbag. He was looked like a real dirtbag. So when you're going on and off a plane, the planes land on the tarmac in an area you don't know. Whatever airport you're at, you're in a corner, the plane is surrounded. And it's got a guy on each corner, like placed around with shotguns, and you can't move. You come down the back of the plane and they point you to a bus. You go to that bus, you go to that bus. They got buses over there. So while you're waiting to get on the bus, you're waiting, and then you're seeing the people who got off the bus getting on the plane. So you kind of pass, you see some friends you know, you're not supposed to talk or anything, obviously. What does Larry do? I see Pearlman, fat Pearlman. He was in the papers and everything. I said, hey, Pearlman, watch your ass, you're in trouble. And everybody just like chuckles at everybody because he was really looked like a dirtbag. This is the guy that took advantage of the NSYNC guys and the Backstreet Boys, I think it was. And it was a big, big thing where he stole all their money, did everything. And he was just a scumbag. And I'm the guy that gave him a hard time, gave him, you know, he was scared shit. On the planes, I used to see how they work on the planes is if you're in a black box, they put you up front, you know, and up front, they usually have a row, sometimes empty, but sometimes not, and they had women up front. So I'm in the black box. I'm always messing with them, and they come, you shut up, and they'll beat your ass on that plane. But sometimes I was at a point I was a little crazy, I think, and I would talk to people very, very mumble or do something to try to not get caught. You know what I mean? Because You don't know what's going to happen to you on that plane. Because what happened is you used to go through Oklahoma. And Oklahoma has the airport the prison is at the airport. Literally at the airport. When I first came in, it was what they call El Reno. And that was different. Now, while I was in, they built a prison at the airport. And at that airport, they had the big chief Indian, and that guy would snatch you out of line, and you'd be, man, you didn't want to mess with that guy. I remember that guy to this day. I don't know where he is, what he did, but I remember him like you wouldn't believe. And I seen him snatch people up, but I was smart. I mean, you know when to play. I mean, obviously when you lose it, like I did at Jessup, which I'll be talking to about with Gary Massey, who's a good guy, was a guard, and then he became an inmate. You're gonna hear the whole story. I got a bunch of videos coming with him. They're really interesting stuff, and I mean interesting. Talking about, you're gonna see both sides of it. We can even talk about the Epstein case. So from both points of view. So you'll see that. That's gonna be really good. So going back to celebrities in prison, for the most part, there's no such thing as it. You know, celebrity is not the word, it's high profile. Second, it's money. I was in prison with a guy named Willie Falcone, and Willie sold a few cells for me in Atlanta, and Willie was the biggest drug dealer in the world. He ended up going for 20 years because they couldn't get him on the other murders, so they ended up getting him on a gun charge. He got 20 years. What a class guy. Class guy. Him and I, actually his furrier was my furrier when I had horses. He used to do my horses as well. I got him Albert Gonzalez. Good memory still. Did Furrier. Furrier is the guy who fixes the horseshoes, the shoes on the bottom of a horse. Well, he had 80 horses, this guy. 80, beautiful. He's a billionaire. Drug dealer, billionaire. But the nicest guy, very high profile. Very high profile. So you had guys who were high profile, but celebrity status doesn't get you any. In fact, it's bad because you're a target, because you either have money. People know, oh, he's got money, and they're gonna try to con you, manipulate you, or you're gonna try to get in to not get either attacked or raped or something. I was with Nicky Scarfo. Nicky Scarfo was a crazy dude, high profile, but he ended up stabbing a guy right in the middle of the yard. I mean, he didn't care, he had multiple life sentences. But he had to do what he had to do to show that he's not weak. Because you can't be weak in prison. You can't just be walked over. Now, with money, like anything else, money does help. Don't ever think it doesn't. Money is very important in prison. I was lucky. I was a retired veteran. So I had a military check. So in the military, I would get some of that money. Most of it went to my wife. But I got a few dollars, so I always had money. Then I became a hustler, which was a street thing that everybody like myself, guys like myself do. And I showed you a last video about how that works, how you make money in prison. I hope you like that one. And you know, now I often think, what would happen to me? Would people recognize you in prison? Probably not, unless they could see YouTube, and I know they can't see YouTube. But maybe they could hear a podcast, because we have a podcast. If you guys didn't know that, our podcast, these things go to podcast. So we're on Spotify and iTunes and whatever podcast you listen to. So you can download these shows in your car or wherever you are and use them, which is a good thing as well. So remember that, but maybe that. But we used to always look out for each other. And let me tell you, if a guy was a high profile guy, whether he was worth millions of dollars or just coming down from his career, or we knew him from just the newspapers or whatever, if he was a good dude and he knew how to act, he was accepted. If he didn't, he was fucked. And I don't care who you are, that's what you got to remember. It's how you act that makes your time in the joint the best. Obviously, you guys know I don't want you to go to prison. I don't want you to make the bad choices I made. I made bad choices that ruined my life. I lost my daughter was 15 months old, and my son was 6 years old when I went to prison. I got out, and my son was 18, and my daughter was 13. If that don't break somebody's heart and they don't understand what's really about. Because everything else, the money and everything else, all you losing, all that stuff is one thing. It's losing your family, that's the worst. I'm lucky and blessed that I had a dad that stuck with me, and mom that stuck with me, and family members that stuck with me through and through. They didn't like what I was, but they liked the man. They didn't like the crime, they liked the man. So make sure you're making the right choices, everybody. Make sure you're doing the right thing, please. It doesn't take much. Think before you act. think before you act. And think of where you can end up. And don't think a record, even for a juvenile, doesn't follow you, because it does. Trust me, it does. But with that said, I'm going to close on this video. Please keep comments, you know, keep them coming. We're coming up with 1 million subscribers, and we got something really big planned. Please pass the word. If you haven't subscribed, click the subscribe button. Really appreciate it. If you haven't checked out the merch down below, please check that out. Thanks for all the comments, guys. I really appreciate you guys, my family, YouTube family. Really appreciate it. Much love, much respect. Stay safe. Larry out.